Anita. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a bracelet. It's called a Cabaret Bracelet, and it's from one of my old beading books. It's old paperback, no longer in print. The original designer is Yvonne Rivero, who is the author of the paperback, and unfortunately that is no longer in print. So I'll have links in the description box below that'll apply to all the products used today. And if you click more below the video, you'll get all the details, including a link to my website. All right, so let's get started by reviewing the materials. First of all, you're going to need some 3mm fire polish beads. That's what I have here. And I'll have exact counts and measurements in the description box. You're going to need some 11/0 Miyuki seed beads. And you're also going to need some size 8 hex beads. And I prefer Miyuki. Also, I've got some 15/0 Miyukis here. The 11/0s are galvanized gold. My fire polish are Jet AB, 3mm. And then my hex bead is like a royal blue, a silver line royal blue. The 15/0s are silver line red violet. You're going to need a toggle clasp or whatever clasp you want to use. You're also going to need I'm using two soldered jump rings. I've only got one here because I already used the other one. And you're also going to need 2 open jump rings, and these are both 6mm or whatever you have on hand. And I'm going to be using some 6-pound fireline in smoke, and also a couple of pair of flat nose pliers and a pair of scissors. And I believe that's everything you're going to need. So let me give you a quick glimpse of what we're making today. I've done several versions of this, and this is what it's going to look like. Very beautiful, shiny, metallic, royal blue with the pop of Jet AB in the center, surrounded by the 11/0 in galvanized gold, and then the 15/0s are bordering between the hex bead and the 11/0 seed bead. Very beautiful and very comfortable to wear. It's a very sleek design. And you can see I've already done one end of the clasp. I'll show you how to do all that. So let's clear our material area and we'll get started. So you're going to start by threading your needle with a couple of wing spans of thread or whatever you're comfortable with. And I'm using a size, you can use a 10 or a 12 beading needle. So what I've done is I've added a stop bead so that my beads don't fall off, and you can leave, maybe a 8 to 10 inch tail so you can do the clasp on that end. And now we're going to go ahead and start the pattern. And it's very, very simple pattern. There's 2 or 3 different steps you're going to do, and it's a very repetitive pattern. So I'm going to show you how to do this a couple of times, and then we'll go on to the next step of embellishment. So what you're going to do is you're going to start by picking up one of your hex beads, a 15/0 in the red violet, an 11/0 in the galvanized gold, your fire polish bead, another 11/0 in gold, another 15/0 in the red violet, and another hex bead. So that's what that should look like. Hex bead, 15/0, 11/0, 3mm fire polish, 11/0, and 15/0, and ending with a hex bead. So you're going to bring that down to your stop bead like that. My tail thread is over here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick up another hex bead. My thread is exiting the top right here, and I'm going to come back through that same hex bead on the opposite side of where my thread is coming out. And if that gets loose, just kind of pull that together, pinch it between your fingers as you're pulling your thread. And you want that hex bead to line up right next to the other one. So you want to try to do this without any thread gaps. So just kind of pull it, hold it like that, pull, and get that hex bead to go sideways. Like that. Now the thing I want to warn you about on these hex bead, like your bugle beads, if you have any irregular or jagged edges, you don't want to use those, and I'll give you an example of one. You might have one that's slightly irregular. So if you look at this one, it's got a really jagged edge and it's not quite cut across straight. So just be mindful of that as you're picking up your beads, that they look fairly consistent. They're not going to be perfect, but you want them to at least have a straight cut across with no slants. All right, so we added our hex bead. My thread is exiting the far end. I'm going to bring my needle back down through the last hex bead I added. Now I'm going to pick up a 15-0 and an 11-0 in gold. My thread is exiting the hex bead. I'm going to go through the 3mm fire polish. Pull your thread, and that's going to border those two beads right on top of the fire polish. So now we want to mirror that, and on the other side we're going to pick up an 11-0 in gold, the red violet and a 15-0, and we're also going to pick up a hex bead. So from here, instead of coming what you would think you'd be going this way, we're going to bring our needle in through this side, underneath the hex bead, like that, going in this direction. And you only want to go through the hex bead. So pull that through. And what that's going to do is that's going to make the hex bead come alongside. So just carefully pull that, hold that together, and it's going to align that right next to the other hex bead. So your thread is coming out of the hex bead on the left. We want to come down through the hex bead on the right, just like that. Pinch your fingers holding your work as you pull your thread. And that's your first component. Very simple pattern to do. So now we're going to pick up another hex bead. I'm exiting this hex bead. We're going to go down through the top or opposite side of where my thread is. Pull that through, and that hex bead will border right next to where your thread is exiting. Now we're going to bring our needle back through the hex bead we just added, and we're going to repeat what we did here. So we're picking up a 15-0, an 11-0, our fire polish, an 11-0, and a 15-0, and a hex bead. Just like that. We're exiting here, but we're going to bring our needle on top of this last hex bead, just through the hex bead. Pull that through, and that's going to sit it right next to where your thread is coming out. It doesn't want to quite lean yet because we have to bring our needle back up through the hex bead in this direction. Pull your thread. So that's what you should have so far. So now from here, we're going to add another hex bead. Pick up your hex bead. We're exiting this hex bead here, going back through the bottom to add the start of our completing our second half of that component. So my thread is exiting this hex bead. I'm going to come down just like that. Now I'm going to close this off. As you notice, I just have one side of this done. So from here we're going to pick up a 15-0, an 11-0, Bring your needle through the 3mm fire polish, right there. Pull that through. And that's going to sit those two beads on top of the fire polish to complete the other half. Now we're going to finish this by picking up an 11/0, a 15/0, and a hex bead. My thread is exiting the 3mm. I'm going to bring my needle underneath the hex bead, just like that. Pull that together. Now you're going to bring your needle through the last hex bead we added, going from top to bottom. Pull that together. And there is your completed second component. So we're going to do that one more time, and then I'll send you on your own. All right, so we're exiting this hex bead. We're going to start by picking up a new hex bead, bringing your needle down through the top or opposite side of where your thread is exiting. Pull that through. Now bring your needle back up through that hex bead you just added. We're ready to start the next component by picking up a 15/0, 11/0, a fire polish bead, an 11/0, a 15/0, and a hex bead. Just like that. My thread is coming up through this hex bead here. I'm going to come down the hex bead on top, up here, just the hex bead. Pull that through. Now bring your needle back up through the hex bead at the end. Pinch and pull that together. Pick up another hex bead. We're exiting this one, coming underneath the hex bead. Pull that through. Now bring your needle down through the hex bead you just added. Now we're going to complete this component by picking up a 15/0, 11/0, going through the fire polish bead only. Now complete the other half of that component by picking up an 11/0, a 15/0, and a hex bead. Bring your needle through the bottom of the hex bead. Pull that together. Now bring your needle down through the hex bead on the outer edge. Pull that together. And that completes your component. So you're going to repeat those steps. If you need to rewind the video, go ahead and do that, and you're just repeating that till you get the length of the bracelet that you want. Now I chose to go with about a 6-inch bracelet. So go ahead and continue, and then I'll take you on to the next step. All right, so here's what I have so far. I'll give you a quick measurement on what I did. So I took this to just a tad over 6 inches, maybe 6 1/8. With my clasp, my toggle clasp, it's probably going to be anywhere from 6.5 to 7 inch. So, and you can choose whatever clasp you want. So I'm going to stop here, and you want to end with a completed component like this, where you have the 2 15/0s on top and on the bottom of the fire polish to end your bracelet. And then all you're going to do is, and I'm going to show you how to do this, we're going to make this end of the clasp over here. So the tail thread that you had on the beginning of the project, you can use that to go ahead and do this step and add your soldered jump ring at the end right here. So I'm going to show you how to do that right here. Okay, so what we're doing right now is we're exiting this hex bead right here. I want to backtrack through, so I'm going to take my needle and go down through the hex bead on the outside and the 15-0 and 11-0 right there. I'm not adding any beads, I'm just moving my thread. Now I'm going to come down through the fire polish. Now I'm going to come down through the 11-0 and the 15-0 on the left side, and also through the hex bead right there. Now I'm going to bring my needle up through the hex bead on the outside, just the hex bead right there. And I'm just lining it up so that I can do my clasping on the other side. So let me get some 11-0s here. We're going to start by picking up, get some more 11-0s here. We're going to pick up 3 of our 11-0s, a 3mm fire polish, and 3 11-0s. I'm going to bring that down, just like that. Now I'm going to get my soldered jump ring, and I'm going to bring my needle through that jump ring. Now I'm going to pick up 3 more of my galvanized gold 11-0s. You're going to bring that down, and what I'm going to do is take my needle and kind of hold this in your finger, between your fingers. I'm pinching where the fire polish is and the first 11-0 of that group. I'm going to bring my needle back through the 11-0 and the next 11-0. I want to reinforce that circle. So we're going to draw that to a close like that. I'm going to go back through the 11-0s and the jump ring. So just bring your needle through the 11-0s and the jump ring to complete the circle. Make sure there's no slack in your thread, and we're going to come back down the 3mm fire polish right there. Pull that together. So we did a reinforcement on that. So what we're going to do now is add the other 3 11-0s. And we're going to bring our needle through the hex bead at the end on the top. Pull that together. And that's how you add your clasping at the end with the soldered jump ring. And I chose a soldered jump ring because when I add my clasp, I'm going to be doing it with a closed jump ring. And the advantage to that is that it's going to give you versatility. If you decide later you don't like the toggle clasp, you'll be able to take it off and maybe put a lobster clasp if you choose. Now, if you make the bracelet directly onto the toggle clasp, which you can do, you won't have any versatility to change that out. So that's why I'm opting to do it this way with a soldered ring, and then I'll add a jump ring to connect the two. So just a little tip there for you. If you want versatility with your connectors, that's what I would suggest. Okay, so now we're exiting our hex bead here. We're going to reinforce this by coming back through the hex bead 15-0, 11-0 on the left side. Come through the 3mm fire polish. And then come through the 11-0, 15-0, and hex bead on the left side. And now we're going to reinforce by coming back through the hex bead, the 3 11-0s, coming up through the fire polish bead, and we're also going through all of our 11-0s around the clasping area. So I'm going to do this 2 beads at a time. Going through the next two, making sure my needle is going through the closed jump ring and the 11/0s. And then I'm going through these last two, coming down through the 3mm fire polish, and now I'm going to go through the 3 11/0s and up through this last hex bead at the end. Just like that. So now we are in a position to start embellishing this side. So you'll complete your clasping just like you did here on the other side with the tail thread, and we're going to start by doing our embellishing by adding some 3mm, 11/0s. Let me get some of these here so I can show you. And it's very simple embellishment. You're just exiting the hex bead, picking up 3 of your 11/0s, going down through just the hex bead next in line. Pull that through. Now bring your needle up through the next hex bead in line. Pick up 3 11/0s in gold. Come down the next hex bead. Now come up the next hex bead to set up for the next 3. Pick up 3 more 11/0s in gold. Come down the next hex bead. Then come up to get in position for your next one. And you're going to repeat that step all the way across. So go ahead and do that, and when you get to this end, you're going to reinforce coming around, and you're going to exit this last hex bead here. So go ahead and do that, and I'll get you started on doing the final row of embellishment. All right, I'm coming down to the end here of one side of embellishing. I've got my last 3 11/0s on my needle. My thread is coming out of the last component of these 2 hex beads at the end. So I'm going to come down through this last hex bead. I'm going to reinforce by coming all the way around through these beads. And just continue reinforcing. I'm going to complete this reinforcing by going through these last 3 11/0s and through my hex bead. So this sets me up so that my needle is coming out of the hex bead here at the end. And we're going to continue doing this same step of embellishments. I'll get you started and then I'll send you on your way. Just pick up 3 11/0s in gold, exiting this hex bead, going down through the one right next to it, just the hex bead. Pull that through. Now advance your needle up through the next hex bead in line. Pick up 3 more 11/0s in gold. Come down through the next hex bead in line. And repeat. So you're repeating these same steps all the way across until you get to the other end. And at that point, you'll just bring your needle down through. You can reinforce again if you want, one last time. Bring your thread through, few beads, do a half hitch knot a couple of times, and then cut your thread off. And then I'll show you how I add the clasp. Very simple. It's a pretty thread thirsty project, so you're going to want to have, you're probably going to have to add thread. And to do that, you just add a new thread, bring your needle back a few beads wherever you're leaving off, and do some knots. And just make sure you're exiting the new thread where you left off so you don't skip a step. All right, so continue embellishing, and then we'll wrap up this video. All right, so here we are near the end of our bracelet. Got everything embellished on both sides, reinforced, And I'm going to add my open jump ring with the end of my toggle clasp. And if you don't want to use a toggle clasp, you can use lobster clasp, whatever kind of fastener you want. So we're going to pull this open by twisting this towards you, passing this through my closed jump ring and my toggle clasp, and then just bring that together to close. And there is our completed bracelet. Isn't that beautiful? It's got lots of nice contrasting color. You can do this in any color palette. If you have all of those hex beads in your bead stash and you don't know what to do with it, this is one good way to use up the hex beads in your stash. And I had so many different colors. So let me show you what the finished length on this ended up being, because I did this as a 6 1/8 inch length. And in hindsight, I think I wished I had done it smaller, because this is going to be a rather large bracelet, with your ends here for your bracelet ends. And then once you add the toggle clasp, this ended up being an 8-inch bracelet. So the clasp itself looks like it added almost 2 inches on each side. So if you wanted a 7-inch bracelet with a toggle clasp like this, you're probably going to only want to go 5 inches on your length, because this adds quite a bit. And so there you have it. Very large bracelet, which there are some women, you know, that need a size 8, and that's fine. But if you want something smaller, just keep that in mind. You'll have to adjust the length of your bracelet accordingly so that it fits, you know, to your desire. All right, so this concludes today's tutorial. I'm going to show you some of the other ones before I wrap this up that I did in all the different color palettes, so you can take a gander at what those look like and what your flexibility is with what you can do. Now, if you don't have hex beads in your stash, I'm sure you can probably experiment and maybe try some 3mm, fire polish beads. Make it all fire polish if you don't have hex beads. That would be interesting design, and maybe use pearls in the middle or something like that. So let me go grab the other ones and I'll show you those real quick before we wrap this video up. All right, so here's a quick peek at all the other color variations I did. So as you can see, there's lots of versatility with what your bracelet is going to look like depending on what kind of colors you combine. Just beautiful. This is more of a teal based, and I had some white accents here in the middle to make these center fire polish beads pop. Isn't that pretty? Now, in all of these other bracelets, I did lobster clasp with extender chain. So if you want to make it shorter and you're not sure how the length is going to turn out, that might be the way to go. So that gives you a lot more flexibility. Here's one I did with tangerine tones, very bright and sunny. That would go great with the other pendant tutorial I did. The last pendant tutorial I did, that was the Sunburst pendant. That would match really nicely with this bracelet. I'll include the link to that video if you want to see that tutorial. And then here's another interesting combination. I used a hematite color hex beads with some teal and silver. And then this one is a little bit different. These are kind of a olive green AB hex bead with some gold, looks like a bronze gold fire polish bead in the middle, and champagne seed beads for the accents. And then I did this one in lavender, just beautiful. And then the one we did today, of course, just gorgeous. And if you didn't want to do gold, you could do this in silver. Just so many options, so many opportunity to play with this. All right, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and thank you for joining me today. I'll have links in the description box with all the products used and all the counts and measurements. I also have a website where I sell my own jewelry. You'll see that as well. And if you're not a subscriber, I hope you do subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you're notified when I upload new videos. I do try to do uploads at least once a week, but sometimes I get busy. Upcoming family visits and what have you. Sometimes I might have to take a week off. So thank you to those of you that have subscribed and liked and commented on my videos. I really appreciate your return visits to watch. So I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. Happy beading, and I'll see you next time.